This IPO is one of the most talked about IPO in the country. On 1st of July, 2026, a company is about to raise 585 crores on the Indian stock market. This company is practically a monopoly. It has a revenue of 580 crores, has a market that is estimated to grow at 15% year on year, and practically has zero competition. On top of that, it also made 52 crores in profits. So, do you realize this is the kind of business that investors dream about? It's a monopoly, has mad revenue, and is profitable with growth. Well, that is what a company called Cordelia Cruise looks like. Discover unlimited experiences. Cordelia Cruises. Cordelia Cruises is the only cruise company considered as a luxury tourism in India. Now, here's what nobody's telling you. Buried in this 400-page DRHP is one sentence written by the company's own auditor. After looking at the 2024 numbers, the auditor in very, very simple words wrote that this business may not survive. And this makes no sense, right? With 580 crores in revenue, in spite of being a monopoly, how can this company be in trouble? Now, this is where the sad truth of India comes out. Look at our country. India has one of the longest coastlines in the world with 11,000 kilometers of coastline. And 7,800 kilometers of that is India's actual mainland, which is a long stretch of coast running along the open sea. And across all that coast, India's entire cruise industry earns about $140 million a year. Now, hold that number. This is Singapore. It only has 193 kilometers of coast, which is 60 times less than India. But Singapore makes $3.6 billion in total economic output, which is in very, very rough terms, 25 times as that of India. And here's where it gets worse. When you zoom out, and if you look at countries like US and China, you will see that the United States, the global cruise capital, generates over $65 billion in annual cruise economic impact. And its cruise penetration, which is basically the share of population that cruises, sits around 5.7%. Similarly, China, which essentially started from zero in 2010, built cruise terminals in Shanghai and Tianjin, and is now building its own cruise ships. And in India, in spite of being blessed with such a long coastline, the penetration of cruise in India is barely 0.01%. In fact, cruise in India seems like a far-fetched experience. And not just that, if you look at the cargo opportunity, it costs 2.2 rupees per kilometer to ship a ton of cargo by road. By rail, it costs 1.4 rupees per ton. But if you look at Waterways, it only costs 1.2 rupees per kilometer to ship a ton of cargo. And do you know how much cargo we ship through inland waterways? Almost negligible. And I just couldn't believe it. We have one of the biggest coastlines. We have all the hubs, Mumbai, Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Kochi, Kolkata, Goa, all major cities along the coast. And yet we neither have a cruise market nor do we have an inland waterway cargo market. And this is where it stops being a Cordelia problem and starts becoming an India problem. Because this is what India is missing out. So we spent the last 1 week to deeply understand this paradox. And what I found was something absolutely crazy. And as it turns out, the Modi government is planning to turn this industry into a gold mine. So a dead industry is about to turn into a gold mine, which is why I'm going to use this opportunity to dig deep into the DRHP of Cordelia to help you understand what exactly are the constraints in the market, because of which Cordelia Cruise, a profitable monopoly, seems to be in trouble. Why has India made no progress in waterways in spite of being blessed with such a long coastline? And as investors and students of business, what are the biggest opportunities emerging in this space? This is the story of a country that banned itself from the sea. People, the world is changing very fast. Elections, global conflicts, economic uncertainty, and job losses are creating an information war. And in every war, the people with the best tools always win. In AI, many are calling Claude that understand the mystery of India's waterways. You need to understand the 3 invisible walls that killed this industry. Now, if you look at the cruise business model, it runs on something called the loss leader model. So, just like theaters sell you movie tickets at a low margin and make money out of the 400 rupee popcorn bucket, in the cruise business, They sell the ticket at low margin and get people on board. And once you're on that ship floating in the middle of the ocean, the cruise becomes an isolated monopoly. So everything you spend on that cruise, like spa, the bar, the activities, and even the casino, all of that can be priced as high as they want. Because in the middle of the ocean, the cruise ship is the isolated monopoly. So this is amazing, right? What is the problem over here? In the ocean, you don't need highways, you don't need flyovers, you simply sail and you eat. That's it. Simple, right? All you need to do is have a dock and a ship. Then why is this business so complicated and so hard to run in India? Well, here's where the three invisible walls came up. Number one was taxes. Let's say ship Royal Indian used a dock in Singapore. And like every cruise ship before a big voyage, it used to stock up tons of food, thousands of liters of fuel, huge crates of alcohol, and the casino chips. Now, how much tax did Singapore government charge the ship on all of this? Zero. Why? Because Singapore looked at the cruise and asked itself, does it bring me tourists, jobs, and dollars? Yes, yes, and yes. So Singapore said, load whatever you want, guys, and all of that is tax-free. Now, watch what used to happen the moment the ship reached India. This ship used a dock in Mumbai, and just like in Singapore, it needed to load more food, more fuel, and more supplies for the next leg. But you know what happened this time? The supplies that loaded in India got taxed very, very heavily. And the alcohol, well, on a bottle of foreign liquor, the custom duty could go up as high as 150%. But you know what's the worst part? These taxes were not being levied on things the moment the ship sailed into Indian waters and docked. The Indian tax system taxed all the stock that was bought in Singapore, made in Singapore, and paid for in Singapore. And as the passengers ate that food and drank that alcohol inside the Indian waters, India used to tax it under Indian custom law. Now, read that sentence one more time, guys. A bottle of whiskey was bought in Singapore, made in Singapore, paid for in Singapore. But the moment it got poured into a glass on a ship sitting in Mumbai, the Indian system started taxing it. This is how terrible the system was. The second wall was documentation, and this was the same old story. Even before you started the business, customs, immigration, the CIF, the state tourism departments, the state marine agencies, the district administrations, and even the local police, all of them needed registration after registration, clearance after clearance, just to get started. So, realistically speaking, you were looking at anywhere between 8 to 24 months of delay even before you got started. Then came level 2, the permissions. Because the problem was the permissions did not end once you started. Every single voyage needed a fresh green light from multiple different government bodies like the Port Authority, Customs, Immigration, Security, the police, and more. So, every time the ship wanted to sail, it had to clear all those approvals again and again. Then came Wall 3. It's called the Cabotage Law. Let me explain this with a map. Imagine India's coastline, with Mumbai, Goa, and Kochi. This is a dream cruise route to 3 beautiful coastal cities. Now, imagine a giant cruise line like Royal Caribbean. It looks at the map and thinks, perfect. We'll pick up passengers in Mumbai, sail them to Goa, and then to Kochi. Easy, right? Except the law said no, because cabotage law had one rule. Only Indian flag ships, only the ships registered in India were allowed to carry passengers from one Indian port to another. So, Royal Caribbean could not legally sail you from Mumbai to Goa. Not because it was illegal, not because the sea was rough, but simply because it was either illegal or the permit was very, very hard to get. And this is where it became a perfect self-locking trap for the Indian cruise industry. The law banned the foreign ships, so no foreign ships came on board. And because of no foreign ships, there was no cruise market in India. And because there was no market, no Indian businessman would risk hundreds of crores into building cruise ships. And because no Indian built cruise ships, there was no Indian flagship in India, which meant there was no one to carry the passengers from Mumbai to Goa. So, do you realize this entire law existed to protect something that did not even exist? But you know what Singapore did? Singapore did the basic things right. They first reduced the tax to a fixed and super affordable rate. And this rate was so affordable that even a giant 50,000 net tonnage cruise ship paid a maximum of 10,000 Singapore dollars per year. Then they made two wonderful terminals, and under its Tourism 2040 plan, Singapore is pouring around 740 million Singapore dollars into its new tourism infrastructure. So, while India was drowning in manual paperwork to get approvals, Singapore built something called the Digital Port, a system so efficient that it now saves the shipping community around 100,000 man-hours every single year. So, while India was imposing stupid rules, Singapore built a $3.6 billion industry through simple and convenient policies. But in spite of all of this, Cordelia somehow built a cruise company and makes 580 crores in revenue, with 52 crores in profits. So it's both inspiring and scary. Now, the good news is that the Modi government has finally woken up and now is looking at this industry as a goldmine market. And this is where there is a massive upcoming opportunity. So, India has finally realized what Singapore realized decades ago. Cruise tourism isn't a luxury. You can't be penny smart and pound foolish. It's an industry that can create jobs, ports, tourism, and bring foreign capital. This is the reason why in September 2024, the government of India launched something called the Cruise Bharat Mission. We are today launching Cruise Bharat Mission, and they have some wild ambitions. Number one, by 2029, India wants to increase its sea cruise passenger numbers from under 5 lakh to over 10 lakh. Number two, India plans to build 10 international cruise terminals to create 4 lakh jobs. And lastly, there's even a plan for river cruise inside India's own waterways with the aim of serving 1.5 million passengers. And the best part is to achieve these targets, the government is now trying to break down all these 3 invisible walls that prevented the cruise market in India from progressing. They told down the tax wall and assumed 20% of your ticket earnings as profit and tax only that. They told down the cabotage wall by allowing leasing a ship from a foreign company with absolutely zero tax. So now, a foreign cruise line can finally pick you up in Mumbai and drop you in Goa with no restrictions. The only catch we have here is that these reliefs are temporary and the cabotage waiver runs till 2029 and the leasing tax break runs till 2030. This is most likely because India still doesn't have its own cruise fleet to protect yet. The government intends to bring down the infrastructure wall by building 10 terminals by 2029. Then the third wall is a red tape. To break this wall, the government has launched a few initiatives like a single e-landing card and a uniform standard operating procedure for every port. So if this goes well, as India's per capita income climbs from $3,000 today towards $4,000 by 2030, cruise will stop being a billionaire's fantasy and become a middle-class family's annual holiday. So just like flying became normal and the aviation market exploded, cruising will become normal, and the cruise industry will explode in India if the government breaks all these 3 walls successfully. So, all of this makes Cordelia Cruise seem like a goldmine, right? It's a monopoly operating in a market that the government is going bullish on and is profitable. Well, guys, I am not a certified advisor, and you should not take my advice for investment at all. This is not an IPO video. IPO is just an excuse for me to help you understand this case study better. And from a case study standpoint, there are 3 major cracks in this industry that you need to pay attention to if you're building a business in this space. Number 1, Cordelia's entire 79% market share. The entire IPO rests on a single vessel called the Empress, and that ship is 35 years old. So if that one ship breaks down or hits trouble, the entire business will be in trouble. Number 2, the Indian cruise industry can only operate 8 months a year in India's west coast, which is Goa and Mumbai Walla West Coast. This is because for about 4 months, the Arabian Sea turns violent during monsoon. So, Cordelia pays for that ship for 12 months a year, but it earns only for 8 months from major cities. After that, it goes to the east, but that market is too small right now. So, if you're building a business, this can dramatically change your math from pricing all the way to operations. And the last crack is hiding in the IPO gamble. Now, do you remember that 584 crores that Cordelia is raising? Cordelia is using this money to lease 2 new giant ships. They're called Norwegian Sky and Norwegian Sun, and their plan is to triple their capacity. Sounds ambitious, right? Now look at the bill. Each new ship costs roughly 154 crores a year in lease charges for the first 2 years. With both ships running, that's a combined lease bill of around 308 crores a year. So, do you realize this number is 6 times the current profit of Cordelia? And these payments do not care if the ships are full or empty. So, every month, whether it rains or shines, Cordelia has to pay the so. If you connect the dots now and look at Cordelia's profits over the last 4 years, you will see a risky picture. This company has already lost money on 1 ship in the past few years, and now it is wanting your money to take on lease of 2 more, and that too in a market where there is no proof yet that the demand is deep enough to fill 3 ships at once. This is the dark truth of this industry. It has massive potential, but the red tape is the only one holding it back. So, it's a lot of work pending, and this is where my biggest concern is. Because you see, construction and taxes can easily be fixed by red tape, but this red tape is a virus that has been haunting India for the past 70 years now. And this is where my biggest apprehension with the Modi government comes in. When they make announcements, they are big and flashy, and I'm always the guy who cheers for them. But in the last 2 years, my cheers have started to come with skepticism and not hope. Because targets don't matter unless you achieve them. This is the dark truth of an insanely big industry that India killed even before it was born. So, it is a gold mine, but with the devil of red tape guarding it. And now you tell me in the comments which other gold mine industry in India is being ignored, and I will try and do a deep dive on it. This is what I could read up from the DRHP of Cordelia, and I just thought it would be very interesting to share with you. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable from this new case study that we covered, please hit the like button to support our work. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.